Hey everyone! So we all know the story of Harry Potter, right? The boy who lived. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? Today, we're going to flip the whole thing on its head. This isn't just about a bad guy. We're going to trace the surprisingly logical journey of how a villain gets made. Let's get into it. I mean, really think about that. What if the story we've been told is just one side of the coin? What if there's a much darker, more psychological story happening just beneath the surface? That's exactly the question we're digging into today as we look at Lord Voldemort from a totally different angle. Because here's the thing. This isn't a simple tale of some monster who was just, born evil. Not at all. This is about how a person becomes that monster, how they convince themselves step by step that everything they're doing is completely right. We're going to follow that slow, deliberate walk into the dark. So, where does a story like this even start? Well, it's not with a flash of green light, it's not with a lightning bolt scar, nope. It begins in a cold, gray, pretty miserable orphanage in London, with a little boy who feels completely and utterly powerless. And that boy, of course, is Tom Riddle. From the very beginning, weird stuff happens around him. Things he can't explain, and frankly, things that scare the other kids and even the adults looking after him. So his first real taste of the world? It's just feeling alone, confused, and feared. And in a place like that, you can see how a certain set of beliefs would start to grow, right? You can almost think of it like the basic programming for his entire life. The world feels hostile? Fine, he'll be hostile right back. Other people are scary? Then he needs to be the one in control. He learns early on that kindness looks a lot like weakness, and the only thing that can keep him safe is power. Okay, so then comes the big moment. He finds out he's a wizard. You'd think this is where everything turns around, but his journey to Hogwarts is completely different from Harry's. And this is really where those early beliefs start to harden into something solid. See, for Tom Riddle, that Hogwarts letter, it isn't an escape. It's not an invitation to some magical wonderland. It's proof. It's the first real, solid piece of evidence that what he's felt his entire life is actually true. He is special. He is better than everyone else. And most importantly, he was never, ever ordinary. And that just shows the huge difference, doesn't it? When Harry gets to Hogwarts, he finds everything he's ever wanted. Friends, a family, a home. But for Tom, Hogwarts is basically a laboratory. It's a place to push his powers, to figure out how to manipulate people, and to build an identity that is all about one thing: control. So naturally, people like teachers, they're not guides to him. Not at all. Think about when Dumbledore first meets him. Tom doesn't see a kind, wise old wizard. He sees the first person who might actually understand how ambitious he is, and who might try to stop him. Right from the get-go, Dumbledore isn't a mentor. He's a roadblock. And as he gets older, all these feelings, the sense of being better than everyone, this need for total control, they stop being just feelings. They start to become a full-blown ideology. And in his mind, it's an ideology that makes perfect logical sense. And you guys, this is the key to the whole thing. If you could get inside his head, you'd see that none of this is evil, not to him. These are just necessary steps. He's just fixing a world that he sees as fundamentally broken. In his story, he's the hero. So he looks at the wizarding world, and what does he see? Weakness. Everywhere. He sees old, stuffy traditions that don't work. He sees powerful magic being wasted. And he sees a world that's been, in his view, polluted by people who don't even deserve magic in the first place. He sees a massive problem. And he thinks he's the only one with the solution. And this is how he justifies it all. It's like a 4-step plan. Step 1, the world is weak. Got it. Step 2, what's the fix? Purity. That's what will create order. Okay. Step 3, how do we get there? We need power to enforce that purity. And that leads to the final, and for him, totally logical conclusion. Step 4, I must be that power. It's a really chilling but internally consistent line of thought. This whole ideology then becomes the fuel for his final transformation. This is where he starts to systematically get rid of every last trace of that scared, powerless kid back in the orphanage. So when he comes up with the name Lord Voldemort, from his perspective, that's not just him trying to sound scary. No way. It's the final piece of the puzzle. It's him creating himself. It's the only possible ending to the journey he's been on. That name, it's a statement. It's him completely throwing away his past, his connection to muggles, his own humanity. all the weakness that came with being just Tom. This is a rebirth. He's becoming something he sees as better, stronger, and immortal. And you see this logic everywhere. Take the Chamber of Secrets. For most people, that's a terrifying, dark secret in Hogwarts' past. For him, it's proof that he comes from greatness. It's a legacy he is proud to uncover. It's a tool that proves his whole theory about blood purity is right. But let's cut through all the talk about power and purity and destiny for a second. What's really driving the man who calls himself Lord Voldemort? What's the engine making this whole thing run? You know, he built this entire persona around being strong and fearless. But if you look really, really closely, every single thing he does, every murder, every Horcrux, it's not an act of aggression, it's a reaction. It's him running scared from something. And this right here is it. It all comes down to fear. Yeah, the fear of death is a huge one, for sure. We all know that. But look what's even bigger. The fear of being ordinary. That absolute terror of ever being that powerless kid in the orphanage again, that's what drives everything. His whole life has just been one long, desperate attempt to escape being average. And suddenly, his obsession with Harry Potter makes so much more sense, doesn't it?
Harry isn't just an enemy. He's a walking, talking glitch in Voldemort's system. He's living proof that everything Voldemort threw away, love, friendship, sacrifice, actually creates power. Harry is the one fatal flaw in Voldemort's cold, perfect logic.
So when you look at it this way, the whole story becomes this deep tragedy. We're not just watching a villain lose a fight. We're watching a human being systematically dismantle himself. In his quest to become something more than human, he just erases himself, one logical choice at a time. And that brings us to the final, kind of uncomfortable question. When you really trace that path from a scared kid who just wants some control, to a student desperate for validation, to a leader who builds an entire ideology to justify his actions, you have to wonder, how much of that is pure monster, and how much of it is a deeply, terrifyingly human need to believe we're right? It's definitely something to think about.